Some women don't just desire, they weaponize desire. And when they do, desire isn't about love at all. It's about control. Esdeath from Akame could kill. It's one of Anime's clearest examples. She didn't just crave power, she was power. Yet, when she finally fell in love, her obsession revealed something deeper: Nietzsche's philosophy of domination and the psychology of how dangerous women turn desire into control. We think desire is innocent, a spark, a pull. For Esdeath, desire is strategy. Attraction becomes a lever. Affection becomes a collar. Love becomes a battlefield. Here's the thesis. Will to power doesn't vanish when romance begins. It just changes clothing. And when that power wears silk and smiles, it can feel irresistible, right up until the moment you realize you weren't being loved. You were being conquered. Okay? This is how dangerous women turn desire into control. Esdeath and Nietzsche. Esdeath is the Empire's legendary general, the Ice Queen, a tactician who freezes battlefields and breaks rebellions before breakfast. Her imperial arms grants absolute command over ice. Entire armies become sculptures in her wake. Soldiers don't just follow her, they revere her. Enemies don't just lose, they shatter. But that's only one face. The other is disarmingly intimate. The woman who sees a stranger in an arena, Tatsumi, and decides instantly that one. She abducts him, courts him, dresses him in finery and chains, promising tenderness with one hand and submission with the other. What she calls love arrives with conditions. Join me, become strong, accept my world. Refusal isn't a boundary, it's a challenge. Duality is the key. Ruthless commander and romantic captor. The same mind orchestrates both. The battlefield and the bedroom are arenas for the same drive. Esdeath was raised on a law as cold as the tundra. The strong live, the weak serve or die. She did not outgrow that creed, she refined it. In politics, it looks like order. In war, victory. In romance, it looks like possession. So when Esdeath says love, she means, I choose you, and therefore you're mine. That's not just villainy, it's philosophy in motion. Which brings us to the lens that makes her terrifyingly clear. Nietzsche. Nietzsche's most electric idea isn't a formula, it's a force. Life, he says, isn't content to merely survive. It wants to expand, to test itself, to overcome resistance, to create values rather than bow to them. He calls this current the will to power. It's not a boardroom cartoon of domination. It's the appetite of life to be more, sharper, higher, stronger, freer. Desire, in this view, is never neutral. You want, you're not passively receiving feelings. You're projecting a horizon. I will reach, reshape, possess, become. Even tenderness can smuggle a demand. Be mine, mirror me, orbit me. Nietzsche peels romance back and asks, what is your desire doing? It's creating or conquering. Esdeath is a case study wearing a uniform. She thrives on battle because resistance lets her prove herself. She believes the world's moralities are decorations over a single law. The strong decide. She doesn't ask, is it good? She asks, does it work? Mercy bores her. Struggle completes her. So when she meets Tatsumi, her will to power doesn't dissolve into softness. It reorients. The battlefield shifts from provinces to a person. She calls it love, but the structure is unchanged. Find the thing you desire, then command it. Reforge it. Bring it into your orbit. Her gifts, her praise, even her warmth are instruments in the same orchestra. Align with me or be broken by me. That's not an absence of feeling. It's feeling placed in service of power. Notice how her worldview sanitizes the method. In a cosmos where the strong are rightful, conquest is not cruelty, it's clarity. If Tatsumi resists, he's not making a moral claim. He's announcing his rank. To love her is to agree that her rank dictates the terms. That's why her affection feels at once intoxicating and suffocating. It gives, but only as a way to bind. Nietzsche admired strength, but he also warned about its disguises. Morality used as power, pity used as power, even love used as power. When will to power wears velvet, you may not see the blade until you're already saying yes. Transition. But Nietzsche also warned us, when will to power is expressed through desire, it can transform love into a battlefield. Esdeath's relationship with Tatsumi is one of the strangest romances in anime. Not because she loves him despite being a villain, but because she doesn't understand love as anything other than domination. For Esdeath, romance isn't an escape from power, it's just another battlefield. She first meets Tatsumi. She doesn't ask if he wants her, she declares it. She doesn't whisper affection, she demands loyalty. Every word and gesture is a negotiation of control. Love me, she says, or I'll break you. It's not a metaphor, it's a promise. This is where Nietzsche's critique of romantic love sharpens into relevance. He once wrote that what many people call love is nothing more than an extension of their ego, a desire to possess another as property. I love you in this sense really means I want you to orbit me, to validate me, to extend my power into your body and soul. Nietzsche saw romance not as pure sentiment, but as another arena where the will to power disguises itself in silk. And Esdeath embodies that perfectly. She dresses her demands in gifts, in tenderness, even in moments of playfulness with Tatsumi. But underneath, every act is conditional. Every caress says, you belong to me. You will live in my shadow. My desire defines your destiny. Psychologically, this isn't vulnerability. Vulnerability requires opening yourself to rejection, to uncertainty, to the possibility that love might not be returned. Esdeath refuses that risk. She doesn't allow rejection to exist. She simply reframes it as defiance. Her solution is always escalation. Apply more force, more persuasion, more control until the other person yields. Desire here becomes less of a flame and more of a trap. It's a net cast over Tatsumi, with beauty as the bait and power as the binding rope. In ordinary human love, desire can be a bridge. Teeth, it is a weapon. It's a tool to draw the other in, not to share intimacy, but to absorb them. The danger of Esdeath isn't that she loves too little. It's that she loves with the same energy she conquers nations. Her love is sincere, but sincerity doesn't make it safe. It's because when love is fused with the will to power, affection itself becomes a chain. To fully understand why Esdeath feels so captivating and so terrifying, we need to step into another psychological framework, Carl Jung's theory of the shadow and the archetypes it produces. Jung believed that each of us carries a shadow, the hidden aspects of our psyche that we repress, deny, or refuse to acknowledge. The shadow isn't always evil, simply what we leave in the dark. But when the shadow is projected outward, it often appears in myths and stories as figures of danger, demons, tricksters, monsters. For women, Jung noted, there are powerful archetypes of the dark feminine. Think of figures like Lilith from Jewish mythology, who defied Adam and was cast as a demon of seduction and destruction. Think of Medusa, whose beauty and terror are fused into one gaze that immobilizes and kills. These archetypes embody a kind of feminine power that isn't nurturing, but consuming. It's not maternal, but fatal. Esdeath is almost a textbook embodiment of this dark feminine archetype. She's beautiful, charismatic, and alluring, but her allure is inseparable from cruelty. She seduces, but only to dominate. She promises pleasure, but at the cost of freedom. She is Lilith with an army, Medusa with a frozen empire. What makes this compelling is that Esdeath doesn't see herself as monstrous. She sees herself as natural. To her, cruelty is not a deviation. It's an expression of truth. And that makes her terrifyingly honest. Like villains who hide their intentions, Esdeath declares openly, the strong control the weak. I am strong. Therefore, I will control you. When we view her through Nietzsche, the picture sharpens. The will to power, Nietzsche argues, doesn't care about gender. It flows through men and women alike, manifesting in whatever form the individual can wield. In Esdeath, it wears a feminine mask, beauty, romance, allure. But the essence is the same raw current of domination. This is why Esdeath unsettles audiences. She embodies a shadow that many cultures repress. The woman who does not nurture, who does not yield, but who conquers. It's the archetype of the dangerous woman who uses attraction, not for connection, but for control. And because she wears this mask with such elegance, it becomes difficult to distinguish whether you are drawn to her power or already trapped in it. To see why Esdeath is so addictive as a character, we can turn from philosophy and archetype to modern psychology. Good, because what Esdeath demonstrates is not only the will to power, but the mechanics of addiction. At the root of addiction is the cycle of dopamine. Desire triggers it. Anticipation sharpens it. Reward cements it. Each loop creates reinforcement. Want gives, seek gives, obtain gives, repeat. In healthy contexts, this fuels growth, learning, bonding, achievement. But when hijacked, it becomes a trap that keeps you chasing something that may never truly satisfy. Esdeath is addicted to two things: battle and Tatsumi. In battle, the cycle is obvious. She craves the thrill of resistance, the anticipation of combat, the reward of victory. Each fight feeds her appetite and makes her hunger for the next. In love, the same mechanism appears. Tatsumi's resistance is what excites her. His refusal makes her pursuit sharper, his small concessions more intoxicating. She is caught in a loop. The more he resists, the more her obsession deepens. But here's the twist. When you combine addiction with power, you don't just trap yourself, you trap others. Dangerous women, the Est archetype, turn this psychological loop outward. They don't just become addicted to their object of desire, they make their object addicted to them, They supply intermittent reinforcement, affection one moment, punishment the next, gifts one day, threats the next. This unpredictability creates what psychologists call a trauma bond. The victim becomes hooked on a cycle of craving and relief, unable to break free. In this light, Esdeath's relationship with Tatsumi isn't just a love story gone wrong. It's a live demonstration of how desire, when fused with power, creates dependency. She doesn't want a partner. She wants a captive who believes the chains are love. And this is the chilling truth. For Esdeath, love was never about intimacy. Intimacy requires equality, mutual recognition, vulnerability. None of that fits into her worldview. For Esdeath, love was submission, was the extension of her empire into a single soul. That's why she is both intoxicating and terrifying. Because beneath her beauty, beneath her charisma, lies the most dangerous formula of all. Desire sharpened into addiction, weaponized by power, and sealed with the word love. Every ethic contains its own collapse when taken to excess. Nietzsche praised the creative potential of the will to power, the force that makes people forge new values and become more than they were. He also warned, when that force is misdirected, when it feeds not creativity but compulsion, it ceases to be a source of life and becomes an engine of ruin. Esdeath's arc is the textbook of that warning. Her power was never merely tactical, it was existential. She built an empire of certainty around herself. Strength is truth, dominance is order. That certainty gave her authority, but it also narrowed her perception. Where other commanders measured odds and alliances, her obsession simplified the world into one question: can I possess this? When desire becomes a single metric for worth, strategy dissolves into pursuit. The effect is painfully human. Obsession makes you predictable. It exhausts reserves that might otherwise be spent on prudence, blinds you to nuance, and converts allies into mere instruments. The will that once sharpened her edges begins to dull them. The hunger that energized her becomes a weight that drags her through decisions she would have once avoided. And so, her fall is less a sudden stroke of fate than the consequence of a life rerouted by craving. Her mistakes are not moral lapses. They are the arithmetic of narrowed attention. One choice prioritized above every other. One risk taken because the object of desire must be obtained. In the end, the empires she commanded could not shield her from the simplest human weakness, the inability to restrain a want. In a Nietzschean sense, she stops being an overman who creates values and instead becomes a tragic example of will consumed by itself. The woman who controlled armies could not control the one thing that mattered most to her, her own desire. That is why Nietzsche would call her not a conqueror, but a prisoner of the very power she once wielded. Esdeath's story compresses a long, uncomfortable lesson. Desire can build worlds, but when fused with domination, it will not only remake others, it will remold the self into something brittle. We traced that arc. Attraction becomes strategy. Strategy becomes bondage. Bondage becomes addiction. And addiction becomes downfall. She is the dangerous woman archetype in the clearest possible light. Beautiful, irresistible, and ultimately self-ensnaring. Her love was never intimacy. It was empire. Her tenderness was never a bridge. It was a boundary. And her downfall shows the final truth. Nietzsche whispers, underneath the thunder of power, that the will unexamined turns into the thing that ruins you. Esdeath teaches us that when desire stops being love and becomes control, it's not just dangerous to others, it destroys the one who craves it most.